Well, the sun outside came up, but I don't know if the sun necessarily rose on the world of Pitt football or Pitt Nation or whatever you want to call it. Because 2 days after North Carolina, it still feels pretty bad. Maybe not as bad as any loss this season, because I think there were worse losses earlier in the year. But things do look grim. And we've got a lot to talk about here on today's Morning Pitt to get your week started on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Well, I don't mean to have such a negative vibe on. I don't mean to have such a negative vibe just to start things off. I mean, it's a Monday already. That's bad enough as it is. Everybody's got a case of the Mondays, but when a Monday comes after, pretty much a blowout loss at home, which came off a brutally bad loss on the road, which came off an almost as bad loss at home, and you've now lost 3 games in a row, and you're 1-3, and you're a third of the way through the season, and you're already at 3 losses total, and things are going to feel pretty grim. It's hard to start off with anything cheerier than what I gave you there in the opening. But we'll find things to talk about, of course, here on the day after North Carolina. We always have a lot of things to talk about on Monday. We take a few extra days to process the game and think about what we saw and try to move forward. Pitt's got Virginia Tech this weekend on the road at Blacksburg. We'll talk about the Hokies a lot this week. It should be one of the games that Pitt, they are favored to win, and I think they should have a pretty good chance to win. We'll get into all of that, but we have to recap a few things and wrap up a few things from the North Carolina game on Saturday. You know the deal, what we always ask you to do: like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That's our YouTube channel, and you want to make sure you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. That's the place to do it. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Hit the subscribe button, and then click the little bell for notifications so that you never miss any of our Pitt video content. You'll get an alert sent every time we post a new video or every time we go live or whatever it is that we may do here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You won't miss any of it. Like and subscribe. And then the website, Panther-Lair.com. Everybody says, why do you always talk about the website? Because that's what we're here to do. We are here to promote the site. Yes, you are right. I had to hit the yes to make it rhyme in there with the you are right. I'm not here to sing songs. I'm here to tell you about Panther-Lair.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to talk with other Pitt fans. And the Pitt fans have been talking plenty this weekend. As you can imagine, the boards have been lively since Saturday night. They were lively before Saturday night, and that has not slowed down. Yesterday was not a day of rest on the message boards. It was very active. And then the last thing, I don't have the image that's going to pop up here, but you know what I'm going to talk to you about. It's home field. Homefieldapparel.com is where you're going to find some of the best Pitt gear around. They have great classic looks, great classic logos. They have great stuff for Pitt and about 150 other schools. They have bomber jackets, they have dad hats, they have t-shirts, sweatshirts, joggers, which I learned are sweatpants just with a fancier name. There might be a difference. I don't know. All I know is they've got great Pitt logos on them, and it's really high quality product. That's really the best thing you can ask for is shirts and sweatshirts and gear that looks great and it feels great. And it holds its shape and it's soft and it fits well. You can't lose with Home Field. So go to homefieldapparel.com. And remember, if you use the promo code LAIR23, LAIR23, one word, LAIR23, LAIR23, you're going to get 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. So go check it out, homefieldapparel.com, promo code LAIR23. All right. When we started the post-game show on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, really, because it was like 1 a.m., when we started the post-game show, one of the things I said right off the bat is look, this was predictable. This loss was predictable. This North Carolina loss was predictable. When we sat down before the season and we circled the games that they were going to, wins and losses and what we thought they would win and what we thought they would lose, Carolina, there was Notre Dame and Florida State, and then there was North Carolina. And I feel like North Carolina was the one that people circled the most after those two, sort of big games at mid-season, because they knew North Carolina was tough. They knew North Carolina was a really good team with a great quarterback, and that's going to be a challenge. And it's always been a challenge against this defense. And it's partially about this defense, but it's also just partially about college football. If you have a great quarterback, you're going to be a tough matchup for just about everybody. And that was the case for Pitt against Drake May last year, and it was a case for Pitt against Drake May on Saturday night. And no, he didn't throw any touchdown passes in the second half, but he could have if he wanted to. I was in Mac Brown's post-game press conference. We got the link right up there. You can, don't click that. That's just a picture. But if you go to Panther-Lair.com or right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, we have Mac Brown's post-game press conference. And he says, look, he said they handcuffed their offense in the second half. Pretty much because they were sure that Pitt wasn't going to score. I said Saturday night, and I'll say it again here, they blocked the punt, right? Rasheem Biles gets the blocked punt. I think Braylon Lovelace recovered it. Pitt gets the ball at the 20. If they go in and score there, what was that? See if I can find. I forget when they did that. Was that the fourth quarter that they blocked the punt? Yeah. It's right at the start of the fourth quarter. So the score at that point, I think, it's already 41-24. So it's a 17-point game at that point, right? If Pitt goes in and scores there, they get the ball at the 20. If they get a touchdown, they cut the lead to 10. Drake May comes back out, and I'm pretty sure he goes down the field and scores another touchdown just to keep it, a 3-score game. I really believe that. They came out, so, of course, Pitt blocks the punt. They get the ball at the 20. Christian Bear and Kenny Johnson fumble a handoff. It looked like Bear tried to pull it, and Johnson tried to take it, and the ball ends up on the ground, and North Carolina picks it up. They ended up driving. I mean, they gained 19 yards before they punted on 4th and 15. But they also got 10 yards from Pitt from a defensive holding penalty on Javon McIntyre. So, long story short, they didn't move the ball very far, but they ended up taking about 3.5 minutes or so off the clock. And I think that's all they were intending to do at that point. They weren't looking to be too aggressive. They weren't looking to really push the ball downfield. They weren't looking to really go down and score touchdowns. They were just trying to get out of the game healthy. If Pitt had scored a touchdown after that blocked punt, I'm pretty sure they would have gotten aggressive again, and they probably would have scored. Because when you look at the drive chart from, the first half of the game, it's... Where is it? I'm gonna get the sheet out for you. You can see it. It's all these scores, touchdowns and field goals and touchdowns and drives. And they drive 75 yards, they drive 50 yards, they drive 91 yards, they drive 75 yards, they drive 55 yards, they drive 45 yards, and that goes into the third quarter. I guess they did score the one touchdown at the beginning of the third quarter, but Pitt was never really going to stop that offense. Pitt was never going to stop Drake May. Drake May was going to do whatever he wanted, and they only stopped because they stopped themselves, because they didn't need to score anymore. If they had needed to, they would have. But the reality is, and we knew this going into the game, and I talked about this last week, that Pitt's defense needs to be good enough in every game to give their offense a chance to win the game. And maybe that's something you could say about every team in every game, but it's certainly the case here, and I think it's more stark, and it's more dire, and it's more drastic because of Pitt's offense and its inability to score. That when your offense can only put up 2 touchdowns in a game, your defense needs to be good enough to make sure that 2 touchdowns are enough to win. They got a kick return touchdown that added some points, and then a couple field goals to help push the final score, and or one field goal, I guess, to make it 24 as opposed to 20, as opposed to the 14 offensive points that they actually scored. But that means that the defense needs to hold the opponent to less than 20 points on most occasions. And with the state of this offense right now, with how they've been playing, with how little they've been scoring, the defense needs to hold its opponents under 20 points. And that's a real challenge. There's going to be teams that they play this year where that's not impossible to do. This week's opponent looks like one of those teams. Wake Forest could be one of those teams. Boston College could be one of those teams. But it's going to be tough to hold Louisville under 20 points. It's going to be tough to hold Duke and Syracuse under 20 points. It's really going to be tough to hold Florida State and probably even Notre Dame under 20 points. You're going to have some challenges in there. So you might have 3 teams you can do that to and maybe keep the game in range for your offense to win it. But you're going to have, you have another 5 out there that I'm not sure you can hold those teams under 20, which means your offense is going to have to score more. And the problems with this team come back to that side of the ball. And there's a lot of reasons why that side of the ball is a problem. Phil Dracovic was obviously a big issue over the previous two games, the Cincinnati and the West Virginia game. He was better in the first half against North Carolina. He wasn't perfect he was perfect for a while. I think he completed his first 7 passes, finished the first half 11 of 15 for 109 yards. Not a great stat line, but they weren't trying to build a great stat line. They were trying to move the ball downfield with some more high percentage completions, and Panthers sort of bristled at the concept of an easy pass. But I think we all know what we mean when we say like an easier pass, an easier completion, a higher percentage completion, and something that sort of could get a little momentum and get something rolling for the offense. And Dracovic was able to do that, and I thought he did a decent job. He was running well until Carolina pretty much put a stop to that. I would have been curious to see what Pitt was able to build off of that, because I'd like to think that if they were going to run the quarterback as many times as they did in the first half, they would, build off of that. Dracovic, I think, had 4 rushing attempts, not counting sacks, in the first half. I'd like to think that they plan to do that in the first half, and then in the second half build something off of that would be an adjustment to North Carolina's anticipated adjustment. We never actually got to see if that would come to fruition, but let's just assume that was the plan, was to have a counterattack ready to go when Carolina finally adjusted to Phil Dracovic's running out there. But he thought he played okay. Didn't make any hero plays. Had a pass to Gavin Bartholomew that was a rather long gain and not exactly on target. Made it a very high degree of difficulty catch for Bartholomew, but I thought he played okay for the half that he was in. Then you go to Christian Veilleux because Dracovic gets hurt. And I don't know what Dracovic's status is going to be for this week. Maybe he'll be back and ready to go. Panarduzzi said it was not a concussion protocol situation. It was some other kind of injury. Rumor on the message boards about an ankle or something like that. I mean, if that's the case, it's going to be... it would seem like it's likely that Veilleux will get a start here at Virginia Tech on Saturday night. Veilleux went, his final stat line, 8 of 19 for not a lot of yards and 2 interceptions. Well, the official stat book says 7 of 18. That's what they printed off right at the end of the game. I don't think that's accurate. The official stats online, 8 of 19 for 88 yards and 2 interceptions. I mean, that's not good. Now, it's his first real playing time, his first significant playing time of the season, basically since Wofford. Dracovic played the whole Boston College or Cincinnati and West Virginia games. So that was really the first time Veilleux has been in there in a real situation. If Dracovic is unable to go at Virginia Tech and Veilleux gets the whole week of first team reps and he's got a little extra practice time, he should be a little better than he was on Saturday night. You would like to think, that he's going to perform better. He's going to have a better command and control of the offense. Because he didn't really look all that great when he was out there on Saturday. But the thing with the offense, though, is, I think they need to become rather hyper-focused on just a handful of things that they're good at, and get really good at those things. And some of it has to do with the personnel. I think the ball has to, and I talked about this on Saturday night. I think I talked about it last week. The ball has to go to, in no order, Konate Mumfield, Gavin Bartholomew, Rodney Hammond. And maybe let's work Kenny Johnson in there a little bit because he seems to do good things when he gets the ball in his hands. But 9, 86, and 6. The ball needs to go to those guys more often than it doesn't. It was successful on Saturday night. I think Phil Dracovic, they completed 3 third downs. Their first 3 third down conversions were all Dracovic passes to Konate Mumfield. Gavin Bartholomew, pretty much good things happen just about every time you throw him the ball. And Rodney Hammond had, a good game. His final stat line was 14 for 83 and a touchdown. It's not 83 yards. Nobody's going to get excited about that. But the reality is, it's because he only had 14 carries. The running backs as a whole had 16 carries for 94 yards. Now, I was talking with somebody on the message board about this, and they said 94 yards, who cares? That's not impressive. No, but averaging better than 5 yards per carry is. And the running backs in the first half on Saturday night carried the ball 13 times for 62 yards. That's 4.8 yards per carry. In the second half, Pitt's running backs only carried the ball 3 times. 3 times. They gained 32 yards. Rodney Hammond had a 17-yard gain and a 5-yard gain, and after he went out, Sebo Flemister had a 10-yard gain. But they only carried the ball 3 times. And I know part of it is the fact that they were down, 28-17 in the second half. They were down by double digits throughout the second half and oftentimes 2 touchdowns throughout the second half. And so I understand that game script sort of dictates. But to me, you're going to have a hard time throwing your way back into games. This team's not built to play from behind. I don't think they have the quarterback to play from behind. I'm not sure they have the skill position players to play from behind. But they can run the ball. I think they can run the ball. And the low rushing totals, and when they end up with, the running backs end up with, what did I say? They had 94 rushing yards. Pitt as a team had 110 rushing yards. They end up with these low rushing totals largely because they get away from what they're good at. You know what I mean? They get away from their bread and butter. We all complain about how much they run the ball. Well, they haven't even been running it that much, even though they've been pretty effective. I mean, they ran the ball 45 times against Wofford and 36 times at West Virginia, less than 30 against Cincinnati. And as a team, they had 27 rushing attempts against North Carolina. And that includes 3, Christian Veillere runs that lost 9 yards and Phil Dracovic having 5 carries. Those guys got sacked a couple of times together. You're a running team, and what they came out and did in the first drive at West Virginia, even though the drive stalled, that's what they're good at. They did it in the first drive against North Carolina. When they went, 13 plays and 78 yards. I mean, they were running the ball a lot and hitting short, quick passes to keep the chains moving. Run, pass to Konate Mumfield to convert third down. Dracovic run, Hammond run, Kenny Johnson sweep, Hammond run. I'm going through the North Carolina game. Hammond run, and then Dracovic pass to Mumfield to convert another third down. A lateral to Kenny Johnson, which was a run, a Hammond run, and then another Dracovic pass to Konate Mumfield for a third down, and then a 7-yard run for the touchdown. That is a Pitt football 2023 drive. And you can, bang your head against the wall and talk about Flintstone football or Big Ten football or Stone Age football and all these different stuff. And that's fine. Maybe you can and maybe you can't win with that style of offense in college football 2023. But that's the style of offense Pitt needs to try to win with. Short of overhauling the offense into, as Pat Narduzzi might call it, a one-word offense, God forbid, you go with something that's simple, that allows your guys to make plays and win games. Short of doing that, this is the kind of offense that they need to win with. And if they fall behind, they still have to use their offense to try to come back because they've shown they cannot engineer a comeback. They're not going to put together 2 or 3 second half touchdown drives, largely relying on the pass. That's not who they are. It's not what they're going to be able to do consistently, and they're not going to be able to come back and win games that way. They need to control the clock. They need to control the game. They need to make it move at their tempo, and they need to win on the back of the running game. I mean, it's that simple, and you might not like it. I don't know if Pat Narduzzi or Frank Cignetti likes it. It doesn't matter. They need to win football games, and they need to generate some kind of positive momentum on offense, and the way to do it is with the running game and the short, quick passes. That's who they are. This vertical passing game, we're going to stretch the field. I mean, we've heard this stuff before, to be honest. And I thought about it during the summer, thought about it during training camp, and they talked about how they were going to go downfield more. And truthfully, I think if you go back and look at, either the Morning Pitt videos from August or things I wrote during training camp, I never really bought into the idea of this all of a sudden becoming this big vertical passing attack. I didn't see it happen. Partially because of quarterbacks they have, the receivers they have, the offense they have, the coordinator they have, but also because, there have been years in the past when guys have talked a great game, almost every year, really, in August, but they've talked about a great game about how they're going to do this or how they're going to do that. I remember in 2017, Quadri Henderson talking about how he was going to show that he could be this vertical downfield guy and all this stuff after being, mostly a jet sweep guy in 2016. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. You rarely have that kind of a wholesale change, particularly the guys are talking about. It's not who they're built to be. And I don't think it's who they can be consistently. But what they are built to be and who they can be consistently is a team that runs the ball effectively, keeps the chains moving with quick and easy, sorry, Pat Narduzzi, I apologize for using the word easy, but quick completions, high percentage throws, keep the chains moving, chug away. 13 plays for 78 yards. You're not going to be 65 yards in 4 plays. That's not who you are. And it's not who you're going to be, unfortunately. You have to be who you are, And I think we know who Pitt is. And we'll talk later this week about the defense, about how it can improve, how it needs to improve, and all that kind of stuff. But this team, it's all about the offense right now. And to be honest, I'm thinking more about Cincinnati and West Virginia. Thinking to some extent about North Carolina because I thought there were some things they did that were an improvement from the previous 2 weeks. But I'm thinking about how the Cincinnati and West Virginia games got away. Those are going to be 2. And we'll see if that list grows. But those will be 2 games that we talk about at the end of the season as games that got away. That if it's the difference between making a bowl and not making a bowl or whatever it is, those are going to be the 2 games that you circle and say they could have, they should have gone no worse than 1-1 in that stretch and potentially could have or should have won both games. If they had a better idea of who they were on offense, if they were better able to establish their offensive identity, and if they were better able to execute the offense that they want to execute. You may not like the offense that they want to execute, but if they can execute it, they'll win a bunch of games, or they can win games. I shouldn't say a bunch. They've lost 3 already. There's not a bunch of games left to win. But they can win games if they execute the offense that they are built to execute. I'm just not sure that they've done that so far. And so this is sort of the day after North Carolina, but it's really the day after Pitt went 1-3. And we're looking at where they are and why they are, where they are. Because where they are right now is at the bottom of the ACC. And I keep writing things, some version of, Virginia Tech and Boston College are in a race to the bottom of the ACC or something. Pitt's in that race too. A game like Saturday is going to give them a chance to at least move out of the bottom of the ACC and potentially, and climb a little bit and be not the bottom, in the bottom 2 or 3 or 4 of the conference. But that's what they're working toward now. They're not they're not competing for the top spot in the ACC. They're competing to stay out of the bottom. And that's the reality of Pitt football right now. All right, we got a lot planned for this week. Should be a good week. We're going to talk about this 1-3 start. Of course, we're going to talk about it all week long. We're going to talk about Virginia Tech all week long. We're going to talk about the defense. We're going to talk about the running back situation and everything Pitt needs to do heading into Virginia Tech to try to get that first ACC win, to try to break this 3-game losing streak, and try to create a little bit of positive momentum going forward. In the meantime, you can get some positive momentum for yourself by going to homefieldapparel.com, getting a sweet Pitt shirt, and using the promo code Lair23 to get 15% off your first order. Homefieldapparel.com, promo code Lair23. Check out Panther-Lair.com for all the Pitt sports news, and like and subscribe to this video so you don't miss anything here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I hope you had a great weekend. I know Saturday night wasn't what you wanted it to be, but I hope your weekend overall was a good one. Glad to be with you again this morning and to start a new week. I hope you have a great Monday. We will catch up again tomorrow on the Morning Pit right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.